Have on and off the playing field. Always surprising, always fun. This is the Muskie Sports Blast on 90.7 The Orbit.
Hello and welcome to the Muskie Sports Blast here on The Orbit 90.7. I'm Gracie Collins and I am joined tonight by a very special guest. I have the Musking women's basketball head coach Erin Eaton. How are you doing tonight, Coach Eaton?
Great. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
This is such a great way to close out the MSB season with the women's basketball team. And I definitely cannot wait to learn all about you. But first, I just want to start off with some of the past recent events with the team. The team finished with a 10-15 record, the first 10-win season in 5 years. Coach Eaton, how do you feel about that?
You know, I think it's important to note that that's actually only the second double-digit win campaign in the past 10 seasons here for Musking women's basketball. And honestly, if I had to pick one word to sum it up, it would be proud. I'm really proud of our young women. Our seniors specifically, they won only 5 combined games in their first 3 years with the program. And for MJack, even though she was in a student assistant role, and Sarah, to win 10 games as seniors, I think it's a testament to their character and the kind of human beings that they are. And I'm really proud to have been their coach. I think you always want to be able to say that when you look at a student athlete who's played for you for 4 years when their career is done. When you look at them, you want to feel like you're proud. And when I see those 2 young women, I feel that with every fiber of my being, I'm so proud of the people that they are.
Yes, I mean, very well said. I know that with Tanner and Sarah in here last week, they were telling me, their goal is to hit those double-digit wins, and they were able to do that. And I am sure that is just, so amazing, such a great feeling. And I know just listening to them these past few weeks, just how hard they've worked and just watching them. And, in only your 3rd year here at Muskingham, your first 2 seasons were in single-digit wins, and, this is a dramatic difference compared to this year's success. And what do you think you did to help develop this team this season? What do you think changed?
I think that, you mentioned Tanner, and Tanner was a huge pickup for us 2 years ago. She was at a Division II institution and was looking for a different opportunity and came to us in our first recruiting class. And across the board at any sport at this level, you don't win without recruiting. And I think we've excelled in that area throughout the first 2 classes. I think specifically in this freshman class this year, we added young women who had won a lot of games, whether it was OHSAA tournament games, championships, league championships. I think they did a lot of winning, and I think that helped change the mentality of our program. I think the young women take a lot of pride in what they do. I think we developed a blue-collar work ethic, and I think we just come to work every day. And I think our freshmen and sophomores are certainly a big part of that, but I don't want to leave out, Casey Smith and Tanner Worth, Sarah Miller, Emily Jackson, who are young women that have either entered this program after a different experience or actually were recruited here by another coach and decided to stay. And I think it was a really good combination of young women this year, and I will tell you, they work just as hard as they play. And I think when you've given it your all, you can live with that regardless of the results.
Yeah, a lot of the information that I got about you, honestly, was looking through the bio on the Fighting Muskies page and online. Something that really stuck out to me was Steve Brocklebank, the previous AD at the time. There was a quote in him that said he looked forward to you developing Muskingham into a contender in the OAC, and it is awesome to see how you did just that, especially looking at the previous years, just how much of a change this season brought. And making even more histories, the Muskies also won their first OAC tournament game since the 2012-2013 season, beating Heidelberg 56-40. How was the team able to pull out that win? And I would just love to hear how proud you are to be there for that.
Well, I think that, you mentioned it at the beginning. Tanner and Sarah mentioned that the double-digit wins was a huge goal that the young women set, and I think we went after that. I think it meant a lot to them to have short-term goals as the season went along, and that was definitely one of them. I think Heidelberg was a matchup that was favorable for us. I felt like we were able to double one of their post players, which allowed us to create some opportunities for us in terms of rebounding. And when we rebound well, which isn't always the case, we're able to really get out and transition. We have a lot of young women that can shoot the 3, and I just thought we got contributions all around with the young women that played in that game. I love the crowd. I wish that every single contest for all of our teams looked like that because, I'd like to think our young women are deserving of that every single game, just like all of our student athletes. But I know our crowd was a big force for us in terms of, I'd say especially when that game got tight in the second half, the crowd was really able to maintain some energy, which refocused us. But I'm incredibly proud. It was a goal that we had, and when you're able to achieve any goal that you set, it's a great feeling. And again, for our seniors, that's their legacy. They got to double-digit wins. They won a playoff game. And I hope it's something that they can look back fondly on and understand the persistence that it took for us to get there. And I hope it's something that's really meaningful in their life when they look back on it.
Absolutely. And I also want to add that not only did they win that tournament game, but they got to host the first round of the tournament this year. And, as an athlete, I know that that's something to be really proud of. And do you feel that playing at home is helpful for the team, especially in this tournament round? Because I was looking at the record for this season. It definitely seemed like the team had some more success during home games.
I think that with any of the young teams that I've coached, and we are very, very young, in terms of the tournament, 9 of the 11 young women that we dressed for that game are in their first or second year with our program, which means this was the first full college basketball season they got at Musking. And I think youth, it's hard when you travel, and that's not an excuse because we needed to be better on the road, but we like to shoot the basketball, and we feel comfortable doing so in our home gym. It was a huge thing to have a home playoff game. I'd like to think the outcome would be the same if we would have traveled to Heidelberg just because I believe in our team. But it was huge for us that we were at home. We shoot better there. I feel like we play with more confidence. And like anything, you always want to protect your home gym.
Yeah, and I want to move on to the quarterfinals as well. I don't want to touch too much on it, but it is really awesome that the Muskies were able to make it there, and they ended up falling to the 14th ranked Baldwin Wallace. How did you prepare for that matchup, especially with it being the next day?
Well, it was tough. The next day we had a full day of classes, and we had players reading our scouting report on the bus ride to BW. And it's the third time we've seen them this season, so obviously you already know the personnel. And Coach Hare is a great coach. She runs an exceptional program. They're one of the best defensive teams in the region, if not the country. And, we couldn't throw it in the ocean up there. We actually ended the regular season in conference play, leading the league in free throw percentage. And we started 3 for 6 from the free throw line in that game. And I thought, I don't really know how this is going to work out for us. But, we fought and we battled till the end. And I take a lot of pride in that. They finished the job, even though obviously at a certain point the game was clearly decided. BW is a great team. It's a great coaching staff. I worked there a couple years ago with Coach Hare and Coach Hartzler, and I have the utmost respect for the program that they run. It's a very talented group of young women, and I think they took us out of our game.
Yeah. Well, even though it ended up in a loss, I definitely don't want to even focus too much on it and let it overshadow how great of a season this was. And to add on even more to this success, I noticed that the Muskies finished with the second best three-point percentage in the conference. And there was some time, I know that some players came into MSB and were talking about how they were first at one point. Are three-pointers something that you have been working on a lot, or is that something you feel like the team has always been pretty good at?
I think we have a lot of young women in our program that were really good high school shooters, and we brought them here for a reason, and that was to continue to make shots. But we shoot a lot at our practices. We have a lot of young women that I feel like carry a pretty heavy course load. They're very involved in the campus community, and so we make sure we get a ton of shots off at our own practice. And I certainly think that lends itself to having success between the lines come game time.
And I just have one more question before we head into our first break. But was there a point when you realized how good this team was going to be this season? Was there ever kind of that realization point?
I think that when we looked at our first 2 recruiting classes, we looked like on the roster on paper, I thought we had a chance to start really making moves in the OAC, because you have to be able to win some games in the OAC before you can truly can contend. And I think we definitely put a respectable product on the floor this year, and that's something that I'm really proud of, our staff, our players. I feel like I probably knew that we could have some success before the team did, but I'm getting really old, so I feel like when you've been around a while, you definitely can see into the future maybe more than a player can. But, I expected us to get to double-digit wins. I did.
And that's exactly what happened. And With that, we are going to take a quick break, so stay tuned to hear from the Musking women's basketball coach Erin Eaton. This is the Muskie Sports Blast here on WMCO 90.7.
Wake up and text.
Thank you for tuning in to the Muskie Sports Blast here on 90.7 WMCO. Stay in the orbit with Musking University Sports by following the Orbit Media Sports Twitter page at Orbit907 Sports. Time to get back to the Muskie Sports Blast here on 90.7 WMCO.
Welcome back to the Muskie Sports Blast here on the Orbit 90.7. I'm Gracie Collins, and I am joined tonight by the Musking women's basketball head coach Erin Eaton. And honestly, I just want to pick right back up to the basketball questions. I have so many questions for you, and just picking right back up, is there a favorite memory that you have with this team this season?
I think every season has so many wonderful memories when you've been able to be fortunate enough to do this as long as I have. But when we won the playoff game at home, I think the celebration in our locker room will be something that always stands out in my mind because there was so much joy for what we had accomplished. You know, we set out to do something and we did it, and that's always such an incredible feeling. And I felt like everybody knew how hard every single one of us, you know, coaching staff, Coach B, myself, the players, our seniors had worked for that. And so that's definitely something that will stand out in my mind for sure.
Of course. And I also want to make sure to mention your seniors this season, Tanner, Sarah, and Emily. I know you already have mentioned them a ton. They've been with you since pretty much you've started here at Musking. So how hard is it going to be to lose them?
You know, I think as a coach, you go through this all the time. And, you know, some years are easier than others, you know, to let certain people go. And I think, you know, you look at each of the three of them, and I just, you know, Emily is such a great example of what a student athlete should be like. She waited until her junior year to let her. Her career was completely injury riddled, and a lot of people would have just walked away. But Emily is such a positive person. She is such a bright light as a human being, and she always kept faith that something good was going to come out of it. And then her senior year, she transitioned to a student coach. And, you know, she's a 4-year starter on our lacrosse team. And she's just an awesome person. And I'm so glad she stuck it out. But I really wish more people would, you know, when they're playing behind somebody really talented or they've had some injuries, just stick it out. You know, do your best, show up and do the work. Eventually it's going to pay off. Like I said, Tanner came to us after 2 years at a Division II, found herself with so many minutes in our backcourt, filled up the stat sheet in a variety of different ways. And I really hope she looks back on this opportunity and finds joy in it for sure. And then Sarah was the team mom. She was such a leader. She's been with me on the court in uniform from the beginning. And, you know, every time I talk about it, she starts crying. So then she almost makes me cry. But she's such a brilliant young woman, and, you know, she's going to go get her DPT, and she's going to do such amazing things. And she carved out such a big role for us over the past 2 years. And I think every time she took the floor, she gave her very best. And there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I just love that you mentioned her being the team mom, because I think that has been mentioned every single sports blast every week, and I just love it. That's the same thing always said. But I have just heard every single week how great of leaders these seniors are. And, you know, with that, I think that brings being able to leave behind some leaders as well. And so, you know, do you feel like they've been able to teach some of the underclassmen the things that they know so that they make sure they're leaving back some leaders when they leave the program?
I do. I think our program is on a good course in terms of where we wanted to be at this point in our tenure. And you know, we wanted to get to double-digit wins this year, and we did. And their leadership has a lot to do with that. I think the growth of the program in every different way has a lot to do with that. And so I feel like they left it in good hands. I really do believe that.
And now I kind of want to change directions here, and I want to take a look at your coaching history, too. Can you tell me about how you began coaching?
Well, actually, my entire life, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, preferably third grade, and a high school basketball coach. And I actually went back home and accepted a long-term sub position in the girls' basketball job at my high school. I was also coaching freshman volleyball. And out of the blue, someone that I had worked camp with that had played for Rebecca Upton when she was a GA at West Virginia Wesleyan reached out to me and said, hey, there's a job open at Bethany College, and, you know, my former coach would really like you to interview for it. And I talked to our superintendent, and he thought it would be a great opportunity. My college basketball coach always wanted me to get into college coaching, but we don't always listen to adults, you know, when we should. And I went down there and interviewed and got offered the job 2 days later. And I knew from my first day on campus that I would never, ever do anything else, because there's so much good in coaching, and it is hard work. It is really way harder than anyone could ever imagine unless they do it. But there's so much joy in it, and seeing other people succeed and being part of their journey as they become young women. And I knew from my first day on that campus that I would never do anything else.
That is just, I mean, exactly what you want to hear for a coach. But, I mean, reading through your bio really showed how much experience you bring to the table, a lot that I didn't even realize. And I especially want to touch on your time at Baldwin-Wallace for the 2017 and 18 season. Since they are a member of the OAC, I mean, saw them, I believe 3 times this season. What's it like playing against a team that you used to coach for?
You know, especially that first year when there were so many returning players still, it was really unique. I will say that. And my career has taken me on a ton of different stops, and early on, all of them were rebuilds, which is why I was so interested in this job. And then I had the opportunity to work for Coach Hare, who's a Hall of Famer. Obviously, her record speaks for itself, and got to learn so much about not only the league, but how she was able to build such a sustained winner. And then the year after that, I was able to go work for my college basketball coach, who's now the head coach at Catholic in D.C. He's also going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a tremendous coach. And having those 2 opportunities, immersing myself in winning programs, definitely gave me a different perspective, because I've always been at the bottom trying to get us to the top. And that's a beautiful thing in itself. And that is really, really hard work. But I think balancing that with the 2 experiences I had with top 25 programs has really helped me here at Muskingham. I honestly can't imagine if this would have been my first head coaching stop. I think that the experience I had as a head coach for 7 years prior at Pitt Greensburg has really helped me be able to sustain. Listen, you lose a lot early on in a rebuild, and you have to still believe in yourself and your players. And having that experience beforehand, coupled with working for 2 Hall of Famers, has really been able to help me stay the course and keep our young women moving towards our goal.
Well, I still have a ton of questions, but we are going to take one last break before we get back into the questions, so stay tuned to hear more from the Muskingham women's basketball coach, Erin Eaton. This is the Muskie Sports Blast here on WMCO 90.7.
NCARD's mission is to engage, inspire, and educate the community, whether that is through health.
Thank you for tuning in to the Muskie Sports Blast here on 90.7 WMCO. Stay in the orbit with Musking University Sports by following the Orbit Media Sports Twitter page at Orbit907 Sports. Time to get back to the Muskie Sports Blast here on 90.7 WMCO.
Welcome back to the Muskie Sports Blast here on the Orbit 90.7. I'm Gracie Collins, and I am joined tonight by the Muskegon women's basketball head coach Erin Eaton. And I am just going to go straight back into, your coaching history, all of that. And I noticed that in your career, you have really specialized in recruiting, and I know you talked a little bit about that. What do you look for a player when you are recruiting?
I think honestly, the most underrated trait in recruiting is how grateful a young woman is for the opportunity to continue her career, the opportunity to be part of something special, and the desire to be coached. I think those are two traits I've learned over all my years in this are really, really important. I mean, obviously, you have to be talented. For me, you have to play hard, and you really have to love basketball. I can be difficult to play for. I'm very passionate about what I do. My career in basketball and having the opportunity to go to college because of basketball really changed my life. And I love everything about the game. I mean, it simply changed my life. So you have to love it to play for me. And if you don't, I mean, it could be difficult. But, specifically in this program, we love to shoot the three. So we look for young women that can run the floor, who have a well-rounded game. In terms of post play, we look for young women that can run the floor, can stretch the floor with their three-point shot. We obviously need some help on the glass, and I think we found that in this recruiting class. But I can't stress enough how grateful someone is, how much that really matters when it comes down to it. I've seen some kids really blow me away with how high their ceiling became just because they valued the opportunity so much to wear a college uniform.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Not necessarily something that you would always think about when it comes to recruiting. It's not always just the talent, and I think that is, a great point. And I also know that as a coach, you do really value academics. And how do you keep your team in good academic standing while also focusing on basketball?
Well, I think we're lucky here. Our faculty are so wonderful in terms of working with student athletes and making sure they can be successful in both. But Coach B runs our study tables and our extra academic meetings that some of our young women are enrolled in. I think we recruit high academic young women. We want people to be involved in the campus community. We want them to make an impact, not just between the lines. I was the first in my family to go to college, and it was something that my parents, they made a lot of sacrifices so my sister and I could go to college, graduate from college. And so I think I always really stress the fact that not everyone gets this opportunity, and I want them to value that, just like I want them to value their time between the lines. And so I think you have to recruit true student athletes at this level if you want to win, and I feel like we've been lucky enough to do so year in and year out.
So with all the experience that you have under your belt, how did you find Muskingum and decide that this is where the next place that you wanted to coach?
Well, I really like challenges. I love them. I love doing things that people say can't be done. When I accepted this job, I fielded so many phone calls, people telling me I was crazy, we would never win, and I just always simply said, rest assured we will, and we have, and we're nowhere near where we want to be, where our goals are. But we took a big step this year, and I am really proud of that because it is such a process, and you have to be invested in that fully. But I love jobs where you can get in the trenches with the young women. You can achieve goals little by little, year by year. I was ready to be a head coach again, after my 2 assistant coaching stops. And I actually interviewed on 2 campuses, and they were both coming off one in 24 seasons. And again, people just think I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but I just love those type of challenges. I feel like there's so much you can do to leave like a signature mark on a program when they're in that state. I feel like the young women you inherit are going to be so hungry to learn and grow. And on top of that, this league is one of the best in the country. It is so well respected, and to have the opportunity to build a contender in this league is amazing. I'm from Northeast Ohio, so I'm back home in Ohio. I feel really comfortable here. And when I came on campus, I just love the people and the campus. I think our people are a separating factor, whether it's faculty or staff, our students. I think it definitely makes Muskingum the special place that it is.
So I love that you mentioned that, you're not done here with working. You're not just going to settle with here. So what does the off season look like for your team?
Well, I think we're going to let them rest their bodies first and foremost. And, we always have goal-setting meetings and in our typical postseason meetings. I always look for emerging leaders in the postseason. I don't necessarily run anyone into the ground in the postseason. We work really hard in the preseason and through the season. But I think first and foremost, we're going to take a break and recommit ourselves to focusing in on what our goals are. Like, what's next for this program? Where do we want to go next year?
Very well said, and a very well-deserved break, I would say, for them. And I have just one more question with just a few minutes left. What are your goals for the Muskegon women's basketball team looking into the future, maybe next season or even looking further than just next year?
I think we put a respectable product on the floor for the first time this year. And once you have done that, you want to be a contender. I want us to make the playoffs again next year. I believe we can host a home playoff game again next year. I love our recruiting class. I think we filled a lot of needs with it, and it's not done yet. And, once you become a contender, you want to be a champion. And I'm committed to seeing this rebuild all the way through here, and I can't stress enough how special of a place I think this is. And we have such a tradition and history of excellence, and this program was founded by Coach Newberry on a blue-collar work ethic and determination. And I feel like if we keep our focus on just outworking everybody, we're going to achieve any goal that we set.
Very well said. And that is going to be all for tonight's Muskie Sports Blast. Thank you so much, Coach Eaton, for joining tonight. My name is Gracie Collins, and you are listening to The Orbit 90.7 FM.
Thank you for listening to the Muskie Sports Blast on 90.7 WMCO. Make sure you tune in to the Muskie Sports Blast at 8 p.m. every weeknight except Wednesdays to see what's happening in Muskie sports. Also, check out orbitmediaonline.com for a full list of broadcasts scheduled. This is WMCO, your home for fighting Muskie sports.